Hi everyone, and welcome back to our channel again. And I hope everybody's having a good summer and not too hot for you, but it's plenty hot over here, where we are in Canada. And I'm going to get into a topic here today, and I believe it's possible that I may have already done a video on this particular topic, but I'm finding that a lot of people lately are seeming to understand and come to the awareness that these changes in themselves through this process of evolution and the blessing that we're getting, if that's the appropriate word, of these new experiences we're having in connections with other people, which in the popular venues are going under the title Twin Flame, Soulmates, Divine Partnerships, all of the rest of the labels. And I'm beginning to realize that also a lot of people are really starting to wake up, and a lot of them are showing up on this channel as subscribers. And I'm taking it as the ultimate compliment that quite a few of you are paying attention, my favorite expression, pay attention, to what I'm having to say. And another area that I kind of wanted to get into here is, there's an old expression that you hear in all of the spiritual circles. It's called know thyself. And it's really coming into my awareness that it doesn't matter how old you are or where you are in your awakening process or how proficient you may become at understanding it and feeling much more confident about yourself, that as you go along, there's no stopping point. There's no, well, I'm there, I've arrived type of thing. Growth, self-awareness, and the expansion and expression of consciousness, yours and mine, is an ongoing thing, whether we're in the body or out of the body. And one of the things that I want to make mention here at this particular point, which is probably not going to sit well with a lot of people, is I have come to the point where I have discovered in dealing with people over the years that in our, I'm not going to use the word reincarnating aspect, I'm going to call it recycling, that so many of us do, is we literally get caught up in that aspect because of belief systems, character development that has not taken place, and impediments, blockages, and manifestations of misalignments in the physical body, going under the label of diseases and or whatever, etc., are manifestations of cycles, points of origins of character defects or personality flaws that never got corrected. And all of these can go under the title belief systems. And as you may have noticed right now on the planet, there are people right now, based on just this COVID situation that's going on, who feel as though this is the time, this is the time that they now find themselves in a situation where they feel as they're losing their personal rights and freedoms by governments all over the planet that are now putting on very tight restrictions and controls. One of them, which is we see manifestations of people who get together in groups manifestations of people who refuse to wear masks in the appropriate situation. And there has been some rumor about at some point a vaccine will come and we're all going to have to do and take on this vaccine whether we want to or not. These are examples, very tiny, relatively unimportant examples of individuals finally coming to the point of realizing something. That the way we behave, the way we express, and the way we live is based on that recycling program of belief systems that are carryovers from other previous recycling processes. And that as we begin to grow and evolve, what happens is one of the reasons that we grow old is simply because we get tired and bored of the particular situation that we're in. I've really come to this conclusion. The aging process is speeded up by boredom. And what do I mean by boredom? Anyone who is one of those people who needs to be constantly stimulated, constantly entertained, and constantly moving from one thing to another, be that a material thing or a new relationship or a new friend or a new boyfriend or a new girlfriend and all of that kind of stuff, is in essence a person who's bored. And they got to keep moving on. They got to keep having the next hit, the next fix, etc. So what happens is they repeat the same cycle over and over again without doing something that's very important. And I'm going to be long-winded on this one here because I want to drive a point home. Some years ago, before the internet came into being, I was the kind of person who was very much an introvert, although you wouldn't believe it now. If I had to get up in front of a group of people, I wouldn't have done it. If I had to speak in a group of 2 or 3 people, I would have at least had to have about 4 or 5 beers beforehand so that I could unwind and relax. And my personal relationships with friends were limited to maybe 2 or 3 at any one given time. And actually, in fact, when I finally got to the point where in order to function, I had to be half lubricated most of the time, I came to the point where I realized that I had a problem. And the one thing that I did at that particular point in time is I did something, and this is going to bring me to a point here. I know I'm being long-winded here, but I want everybody to kind of listen to what I'm saying. I think you're going to have some aha moments here. I came to the point where I realized that some changes needed to be made, and the changes were not external, they were internal. I had an attitude problem, a serious attitude problem that caused my personality based on points of origins of belief systems. I want to repeat that point. Points of origins of belief systems that have been instilled in me by others during this particular cycle of expression of my conscious via the containment field of my body. Now, I hope you heard that part clearly. If you didn't, go back and listen to it again. The containment field of my body, the consciousness that was expressing through it, had limitations placed upon it through the auspices of other people and their belief systems and their impediments, blockages, potentials, if you will, contained within them, and this continues on. So what happened is basically I discovered I needed to make some changes. And I did then what many of you do now. I started buying books, hundreds of them. I spent hundreds and thousands of dollars on books. I gobbled them up, literally, because that's all we had access to. And I started to realize something, that the books only gave me another person's perspective. And sometimes they would make the idea that if you bought their particular tape, cassette, whatever, or you went on a particular, they had workshops at that particular point in time, and you did this and you did that. So I realized at some particular point that I had shall we say, an inner child problem with myself. I needed to get it corrected. And I went around, I looked, and I did find some workshops that they had going at that particular point in time. And that's quite a while ago. This would be, well over 40 years ago. And yeah, I've been around that long in the spiritual community. And I've pretty much seen it all, I can assure you. So I went to them. I didn't like them at all. And I didn't like the way they addressed it. I didn't like the way they did it. So necessity was the mother of creation. So I decided to do and create some of my own. The reason I'm saying this is I'm seeing so many people in the spiritual community, specifically in the twin flame community, who are not seeing their potential that they all have. And the other thing that they're not seeing is that there isn't and I've mentioned this before and I'm going to repeat it in this video, there isn't a workshop or a method or a meditation or one specific thing that is going to give you what it is you need. The only way you can do that is you can get some tools of exploration. I can give you tools of exploration. I cannot do it for you. And you can run from one person to another, one teacher to another, one twin flame expert to another, as many times as you want. Ultimately, it all comes back to you. You have to do the work. What can be to your benefit is to find someone who understands, and I understand, that every one of these connections between two people is unique and special. And it needs to be in a situation where you can have someone who can give you the tools or open the doorways or show you perhaps some of the limitations that you have that you may not be aware of, and then give you suggestions as to how and what you can do to correct it between the two people. Now, that doesn't mean that the same application in the same direction I would give to you would apply to two other people who could be totally different. So if I said to you that I just talked to, and you over here, and you over here, well, I want you all to come to a workshop now and we can do this all in one group, won't work. I don't care what anybody says. To give you an example of this, some of you know that I have a healing modality that I've created from trips to, well, the higher planes if you want. And initially when I began putting it public after I developed it on my own and I did healing work for X amount of years, and here's another point, is once I had the modality, engulfed into my consciousness, I didn't go out and start teaching it, okay? What I did do was I started doing the energy healing work myself to gain something that a lot of people don't seem to understand is important today in any kind of gift or development or positive aspect of themselves, is get out there and experience. Take your lumps and bumps, eat some dirt, get bloody, get in the mess of humanity's consciousness and get some exposure and experience. In the direction that we're going through this evolutionary process, there isn't going to be any candy asses. You're all going to be tough, but you're going to be authentic, and you're going to be filled with the attitude of wanting to reach back and help other people, but you're going to have to get dirty first. And the reason I say this is because I'll share with you what happened. I started doing workshops for the modality when it finally came together after I think about, I started doing energy work for about 10 years or so. And what happened was I did the workshop because somebody asked me to put one together, and I did. And we started doing the workshop. We would have people come to the house for about 4 to 5 days, 6 to 8 people. and I would run them through the workshop. Pretty much the same workshop that I do for my practitioners now, but I did it in a group. Okay, and people still do workshops today on many different areas and topics, and they can make a lot of money from it. They can. The problem that I found, and maybe I'm weird, I've never been motivated by, making money as my priority. Money for me is a way of keeping score. That's all it does. Just, it's good for the ego, it's good for make me feel better. And I feel real good when I'm going out and I'm buying something that I require or need. That's kind of my attitude. So what was happening is I would find with these workshops, I ended up, and don't get me wrong, the people were all good, but I ended up with a lot of quantity and not a lot of quality. And it bothered me. I'm one of those guys, if I can't do the best I can do, I don't want to do it kind of deal. That's who I am, all right? So I decided I wasn't going to do workshops anymore. That I took a break, and I actually tinkered with the idea for actually 4 or 5 years. Nowadays, people in the spiritual community, especially in the twin flame community, can't wait 5 minutes. As soon as they think they know something, they've got to get up on YouTube and they've got to start pontificating, and they have no experience personally. None. And there's an attitude I see also with some people that they think that each generation is going to be faster and faster as they go along. No, that's not going to happen either. Each and every one of you is going to have to earn your stripes, and it's no quicker or faster for anybody. It can be compressed a bit, but I'm going to give you an example. I'm now 76 years of age, and if you think that I've dealt with all of my issues and patterns and whatever else, I have not. And recently I've had one repeat itself yet again. And that is, as many of you know, I have a flaw, if you will. And that flaw is I tend to be too giving with information and helpful suggestions to people. I tend to do that, all right? In some cases it's good, in some cases it's not good. So anyways, what happened was as I tinkered with the workshop, what entailed was I come to the conclusion that one-on-one was the way to go. Now you're getting the point where I'm trying to make here? So I started doing the workshops over again after a few years, and now I'm doing one-on-one. I do one practitioner at a time. I can do 4 or 5, but I do each one at a time, personally taking them through inner child exercises to becoming an active person who's doing healing work or energy work on other people. And I find the quality has gone up 100%, but I still can't give them the personal experience that they require. So the point of this particular video is this, is everyone at some point, when you're having an issue or a problem, you need to understand, especially in a connection with another person, is when the issues come up, and I'm finding this a lot with people, is instead of reacting to the situation, you need to step back and take a look and say, okay, this is happening between the two of us right now, and this is what's happening to me via this issue or problem that we're having. And this is my reaction to it. And if you don't like the reaction you're having, or it's making you feel emotional or unpleasant, what's the next step after that? You need to find the point of origin of that particular aspect. Now, I'll give you a point to remember. I have the pattern of getting myself involved with other people in business venues in regards to the spiritual community, and I've done it 3 times already, all right, and I've just done it again recently where I repeated the same pattern, and each time it was about 20 years apart, give or take a few, in that sense. And the pattern has emerged again. So what it made me realize is to go back and find the point of origin of it and realize that I didn't become totally aware and correct the problem when I initially discovered it on the first go-round type of deal, and I've had it happen to me the second time, and then the third time, and it needed to be corrected. When it's finally corrected, you get what I call, let me put it this way, it's a state of mind and being that's like a great sense of relief, all right? Like something like you had to go to the bathroom for 3 days because you didn't have a bowel movement. I think will give you an idea of how relieved you can be if that would happen to you. Can you imagine what it would feel like if you didn't have a bowel movement for 3 days and then finally you went? How relieved you would. I know this is a ridiculous analogy, and you probably get a chuckle out of it, but it will make you think about it, won't it? This is what you will feel like when you recognize the point of origin and it clicks, so to speak, and it's no longer going to be an issue or a problem for you. This is what you would feel. And what I'm finding out in the spiritual community, there's a lot of people who don't realize that everything that happens to them, there is a point of origin. Every issue, every problem, every situation that comes up with themselves or with another person that triggers something in them, in a sense, there's an issue or a point of origin. It has nothing to do with the person who triggered you. It has nothing to do with the person who triggered you. It has to do with the point of origin of how that trigger got there in the first place. If I can put it in, do you understand what I'm trying to say here? So the method is to go back and take a look at it. And the one area that I have found more so ever, two areas, if I can put it that way, that create these situations for you as an individual is, and again, I want to repeat this, everyone who may be watching this right now, this video, has so much potential. Why is it some of us are still living mediocre and average lives? All right? It's not because we choose to. It's because that's the way we've been programmed, with limitations that block our latent potential that lies within it. I'm not criticizing people here if they're living an average life. All I'm saying is everyone can unlock that potential that's there besides what the life they're living at this particular point in time, whether they say they're happy with it or not. At this particular point, there are very few people on the planet right now who are very happy about life as it's going right now. And I think we could all safely say that, right? So if we want to change it, okay, if we want to change the way it is now, what we all need to do is to rethink the way we're doing things, rethink the way we're reacting to things. We need to go back inside and realize we need to change us. You see, right now we're all blaming the government and other people for taking away our freedoms. The reason we don't have freedoms is because we're not free inside of ourselves, so we're reacting to the people who take away our freedoms when they're not really the problem. You are, because you're not free within yourself. But we always react outwardly to a problem we're having inwardly. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when you realize that, the light goes on, and then you don't have to participate in the old way of doing things. This is what's being asked of us right now in the present situation. It's being asked of us now to wake up and smell the coffee, and to realize that what we're experiencing now in mass all over the planet is we're being asked through the evolutionary process and pushed to completely change the dynamics of ourselves within ourselves in our present state of consciousness via the belief systems that have been instilled within us. How do we do that? And I'm going to be expressing this again here, and I want to mention this, and this is going to be, I believe, a wake-up call for a lot of people. Many of you, well, let me correct that, probably all of you that will listen to this video right now have been gifted with something. to correct that problem and to awaken you and the potential and eliminate all of the points of origin that prevents you from becoming a fully conscious person. What is it? Can anybody answer that question for me? What is it that's been given to you to correct this, to bring it into alignment, to bring it into balance, and to give you a fresh start right now? What is it? Can't hear you. Louder. Ah, somebody got it. Heart center chakra. Okay. Wonderful. Excellent work, class. Now we're going to continue. So then, if we've all been given this marvelous mechanism called a heart center chakra, and we all remember that when it activated, we didn't have any choice, any say, any expression, any participation with it. It did what it wanted, and your life went to shit. Literally, in most cases. Do I hear agreement? I hear agreement. So then hear this. If that thing in the middle of your chest has the power to turn your life completely upside down, take away control of every avenue and venue in your life, begin to forcibly, and I emphasize the word forcibly, change your life whether you liked it or not, where does that power come from? Somebody's going to say God. Leave religion out of it. This has nothing to do with religion. Okay? Where does that power come from? And if this happened to millions of people, and it's still happening on a daily basis to millions of people, and it's changed your life, and some of those changes have been dramatic, then could I say to you this, and you might grasp it, and we can clean this app up for once, because there's an app still clicking in some of your heads. If that magnificent mechanism in the middle of your chest that you had no control and power over initially in the beginning is the gift of change, and I've said this before, and now you're getting to use it, some of you, modestly, initially in the beginning, would it be within the realm of your consciousness and deep in the realm of your consciousness to understand that the gift that was given, and as that energy or emanation from the heart center flowed through your body physical, no control on your part, the body mental, the body emotional, and the etheric body, or the second body, whatever you want to call it, and the sheath bodies, would it be beyond your comprehension to say to you that all of your what is commonly called karma, or, if you will, all of your previous programming preceding this experience into physicality, preceding this experience into physicality, had been, shall we say, forgiven, or wiped out, or gone? Would that be possible for any of you to wrap your gums around that one? Would that be possible? Without getting your hackles up and having to give me all of the proof and everything else that karma is still here? That is one of the biggest blockages on this planet right now, and it's the intellectual, spiritual consciousness of people that have developed through the old programming methods that are deeply resistant to this particular opening, which is causing more and more problems on top of it. Point of origin. You see, now we're getting progress. So if all of that is wiped away, forgiven, so to speak, if you will, then someone's going to say, well, why am I still having memories of previous recycles, and I'm working this out with my twin flame or my soulmate? Because you're not working these out with your twin flame or your soulmate. What you're working out with is existing programs that are still manifesting from this cycle. And as this cycle is progressing, you have the memories of the old templating that is now of no interest. So you don't even have to pay attention to it. And gradually, as you begin to come to awareness, all of these old belief systems about karma disintegrate and fall apart. So in other words, what I'm saying to you, you have the memory of it, but the imprint and the template is long since gone. Point of origin. In the twin flame community and in the spiritual community as a whole, and I'm not just addressing just the twin flame community. Yes, I'm going to title the video that way, because if I don't, half the people who should listen to it won't. So I do it this way. It's called trickery. I like that word, trickery. I like it. I'm going to use it more. Trickery, I'm going to use it. We need to impart to all of you. You need to understand the mechanics of a connection between two people. But before you do that, you need to understand the mechanics of what makes you work. Spend less time on Netflix and going to Barbados or Jamaica on your holidays. All right? And stop contributing to putting all of the pollution in the air from thousands and thousands of jets flying every day. Because when that happens, the mother invention will course correct the situation and have a creator manifest that can get us from point A to point B without killing the environment in the meantime. Do you understand my point? You see, so many of you want to go back to the old ways. When are things going to be back to normal? At the present state of where we were going, in normal state of consciousness that we were doing before the tribulation came and manifested as variable disease manifestations through different people because of their level of unconsciousness, I said. Did you hear that word? Before the tribulation came and started manifesting as a disease through the unconsciousness of the people, that was all considered normal. If that particular pattern or template of how we live had continued, probably by the end of this century, the planet would be extinct. Of animal life, vegetable life, because it can no longer supply the needs, the wants, the desires in the present state of consciousness of the humans that exist upon it. Because we have more and more wanting to come here. Because they're caught up in the cycle of recycling back and forth all of the time through belief systems that no longer fit the evolutionary process. I have vision. I see. I understand. And I try to put it in the simplest of terms so that everybody else can understand it also. Yes, I know there are other people who are doing the same thing, but I find with a lot of them, they're too complicated, they're too intellectual. That's not a criticism, it's an observation in that sense. So narrow it back down when you find yourself in a situation that causes you emotional turmoil. Look for the point of origin by labeling what it is that's making you feel emotional. Put it into one word context. And then say, okay, where did I get this from? And the two places you're probably going to say that you got it from is, I find that probably 60% of your issues and or problems of behavior in communication and connection with other people and lifestyle come from your parents. Through hereditary and genetic download in the physical aspect, and habits, belief systems, innuendos, patterns that are expressed in their consciousness in the family unit. The family unit on this planet, in general terms, has become totally almost dysfunctional. In some cases, we just look pretty as a family, but we're rampant with issues, and they all seem to be coming public lately. Have you noticed? Somebody's going to say, well, yes, Mel, there's a lot of good people on the planet. I didn't say there wasn't. I'm just saying there's more people that are becoming more and more dysfunctional with each generation, and everybody knows it. I'm not trying to be critical of people in situations here. I'm trying to be helpful in that way. So if we don't change, there's no going back to being normal. It's too late. You need to all understand that. It's too late to go back to being the old norm. Because your consciousness is changing, we have created this situation. This particular virus has been sitting within all of us for at least a decade as a potential. It is the force manifesting as a mechanism to force society, consciousness, and the expressions of such to change and evolve. When we change and evolve, and there's been enough change, it will disappear. Just like that. It's adapting to every situation and every level of consciousness, unconsciousness in people. The second place that I find that a lot of issues, patterns, and everything else comes up, be it positive and or negative, is during the teenage. This is going to be a long video. I do apologize, but I'm trying to make a lot of points here, so a lot of people say, because I'm going to be opening the doorway to greater expansions of information coming up here shortly that are going to go way, way beyond the twin flame and the relationship capacity here. So I might say tilling the soil here. The other area that comes into play as point of origin for half of your problems, issues, innuendos, dysfunctional patterns, etc., positive, negative, whatever, are during the teenage years. In my opinion, the teenage years are the most important years of development of the human psyche and development of the soul, as it were, that's expressing now in the years of puberty. That's when you, the person I'm talking to right now, and the inner child, that wonderful flower with all of that potential, with all of that desire of creation, creator, manifesting it, you're like this, and all of you know it. You all know that to a teenager, having a pimple can be a world-shaking crisis for them. Imagine what happens if they get molested. Imagine what happens if they have parents who are fighting, doing drugs. Imagine what happens if they're bullied. Imagine what happens to that teenager if they have negative experiences, traumatic experiences, and they live in an environment where they're exposed to more of the same. The end result is what you see now. A great many people are going to come to the realization that there's too many people on this planet right now. The earth can't keep supplying what we all want. So we can't go back to normal because there isn't going to be a normal as it was. Things have to change. So in order for us to change, to be able to manifest as we are on the planet, we need to go back to the point of origin of what's locking up our potential to do that. As I said, everyone that I see and I communicate and connect with, I always see them as a walking gold mine of unlimited potential contained within a whole bunch of stupid and silly belief systems that keep them locked up in isolation of consciousness, right? Let me tell you something. If you think because of this disease or this virus, you're experiencing isolation, I'm going to tell you something that's really going to rock your boat. People, most of you have been in self-perpetuated isolation, self-created isolation through the manifesting of illogical belief systems, behavior patterns for millennia. Am I getting home here? It's time to come out of isolation. As you come out of isolation, you have the magnificent mechanism to explore yourself and your consciousness that's been given to you. And all of your previous stuff has been forgiven, canceled, or simply let go of. Time to move on. Let me help. I want to help you to understand. And through understanding you, I'll understand me more. And I can grow and evolve more. And I can turn around and help more of you. Because I love to do that. That's what I'm here for. And I've known it since I was a kid. So, and I started out in a very negative, dysfunctional family and bloodline. I grew up with the teachings of my father that by the time I was 20 years old, I actually believed I was stupid because he told me I would never amount to anything because I was too stupid. Okay, and I believed him. And I had to work through that as a point of origin. I know how many of you feel because I've been there. So, when you have these situations come up and you get an emotional response, try to look for the point of origin of where it comes from. All right, give you an example. One of the problems that we have in this area here is we're in a small town and we have a local high school here. We have a suicide or a suicidal situation here with teenagers. And suicidal tendencies run in families. It is a belief system that is passed on as a template through one. It may miss someone in a family, but it can manifest in another. And I've worked with people who have had suicidal tendencies. And each and every case I find out if I do a little poking and prodding with them, that there have been others preceding them who have had the same tendency throughout generations previous. And it's something that can be corrected. Many people don't realize that they're reacting to old templates that are not even theirs. And I can tell you the freedom that you will experience when you realize that this is happening, when you go on this wonderful exploration of journey through yourself. I mean, why would you want to go and watch Netflix for hours on end? Why would you want to go to Jamaica? I mean, I haven't even been outside my house, literally, for the past month. One, it's been too hot. All right, for one thing, and I'm having a great time. Well, I do watch Netflix occasionally, all right, but only occasionally. I'm having so much fun experiencing my state of consciousness, experiencing myself being totally miserable, being totally emotional, barely non-functional physically. And I know I'm evolving, I'm changing, I'm growing. It's not going to come like a bed of roses or a can of cherries. There are going to be some lumps and bumps and gooey things along the way, so to speak, okay? This is what I'm trying to say. Become your own seeker within yourself. I think I've said enough. 44 minutes, long enough, right? Everybody have a great day. Remember, the next time an issue comes up or a problem with you or someone else, take a look at the point of origin, take a look at the template, and watch if the template or the pattern doesn't repeat itself. And if it repeats itself, you have not dealt with it thoroughly enough to do that. And they will come up repeatedly and test you. Okay? All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.